Hello, everyone. This is Mohammed Akif with Akif CPA, and today we'll be talking about taxes for Canadians on E2 visa with the LLC that is converted into S-Corp. Again, these are Canadians on E2 visa that have LLCs and are looking to convert into to S-Corp. Look, I mean, we come across a lot of Canadians on E2 visa. We work with a lot of businesses that are owned by Canadians who come to the United States or would have LLCs and then are running into problems. And then I'll tell you why there are problems. We'll discuss why the problems come. Some of the things that you need to do in order to alleviate some of the problems, and also the small details that really can impact your business, your taxes, your cross-border compliance. So these are things that we'll be discussing here. So again, I work with Canadians who come to United States on E2 visas, with LLCs, with corporations, and then once they get here, then they find out what really went wrong with the LLCs they have or with the corporation they have, and then the tax issue starts, and then it becomes hard to untangle some of the stuff. But of course, we can help you and we can get it done. So look, if you have a complex situation that we haven't covered, email us at info@akifcpa.com. We can definitely help you. Send us your situation. We'll take a look. We'll get on a call, discuss solutions, and then go from there. So, without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen. So this is a blog that is on our website that you can go and see. So I'll be talking about how this works for Canadians on E2 visa with LLCs looking to convert it to S-Corp. What are the issues? What are the requirements? And then what is happening at the background, right? This is all new to Canadians, so there's a lot of information that I'll be going through. So look, again, if you have a situation that you don't know what's going on, you don't know how to deal, email us, info@akifcpa.com, and we can help you. So let me get started. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you can see what I am seeing, and then we can go from there. So Canadians on E2 with LLC. All right. So I'll tell you what the biggest problem is, and then we'll go into other problems. So what it happens is when a Canadian tax resident comes to the United States on E2 visa, technically this LLC is taxed in the U.S. in a much different way than it's taxed on the Canadian side. And then when I say Canadian coming to the United States, doesn't mean that they're establishing. It could also mean that they're establishing, they're moving, but there are many different things that are happening. So this is for people who are in the transition or who have moved but have not cut ties with Canada. They're still in the process of filing a departure return. They're still in the process of figuring out how this is going to play out for them. So when a Canadian resident comes here on an E2 visa with the LLC, and then of course they go to different accountants, what happens is that they're told that we need to convert to S-Corp. And then what is the problem there? So, and then what is the problem with the LLC, number one, and what is the problem with the conversion, number two? So what it does, it creates a complex situation between US and Canada. And then I'll tell you why. So in the US, an LLC is considered a disregarded entity if owned by 100% by a single member. So if single person owns 100% of it, it's considered disregarded entity. And what do I mean by disregarded entities? For legal purposes, you are separate. So entity is separate, you are separate. But for tax purposes, you are one. So that means entity is not paying any tax. The LLC is not paying any tax. You are the one who's paying tax. On the other hand, Canada, which is CRA, treats LLC as a taxable corporation. A big problem, right? In the US, pass-through entity, LLC does not pay any tax. Owner pays tax. On the Canadian side, the CRA thinks this is a corporation. So what was the problem with that? Any tax you pay on the US side, you won't be able to get the foreign tax credit, which creates a double taxation scenario. So this mismatch leads to a possible double taxation, right? So that's the key thing here. And then so as a Canadian E2 visa holder, your US obligation really depends upon if you are becoming a tax resident. So if you meet the substantial presence test, and if you do meet it, then we have US tax issues that you need to think about. So there's a lot going on. First is how the entity is set up in the US. What is your residency on the Canadian side? Right? So are you still a Canadian resident or not? That's that's number two. Number three, and then are you becoming a US resident or you have become a US resident? What are the issues there? So there are layers of issues that need to be sorted out when it comes to LLCs or when it comes to converting that into S-Corp. So for example, now you have LLC, you come to the United States, you still haven't, you still haven't filed a departure return. You haven't told CR that you have left Canada. And then now you're trying to convert this into a S-Corp. First, the LLC has, again, it's a corporation. So now when you try and change the entity status or tax structure, that could also create a problem on the Canadian side. So, so these are all the issues that you have to think about before you make a move. So a lot of times when I'm dealing with Canadians, things have already been done. You know why? Because the accountant, the CPA, the lawyer they were working with had no clue about how this is working on the Canadian side. All they were thinking about is what works in the US. I get that part. Don't get me wrong. But there are other ways for things to work for you, which can also work for the Canadian side. And doesn't have to be this messy. So for example, I'll go why this happens, why why majority of the people are not able to help you. And then what really is going on at the back end, right? So let's move to key considerations. So what really happens is, majority of limited cross-border tax knowledge. We're going to talk about why this is happening. So majority of the U.S. immigration lawyers and U.S. tax professionals are unaware or have limited understanding of the cross-border tax complexities for Canadians with LLCs. And that's, I'm going to put it at 98, 99% of U.S. tax lawyers, U.S. CPAs, U.S. tax professionals have no knowledge, limited exposure when it comes to a Canadian with having a U.S. LLC. They just don't. And so whenever they're talking to you, and whenever you're saying, hey, I have RSP, I mean, their eyes are wide open because they don't know what is RSP. And then so you can tell, hey, is this person going to be able to help me or not, right? So when they don't know, that means, the situation that you are in on the US side now is complicating your Canadian situation. And especially when you become a US tax resident, that even complicates it even more. So again, limited cross-border tax knowledge with a lot of U.S. immigration lawyers. I mean, I get it. This is not their area. That's the reason you need a person. You need a cross-border professional to help you guide. And there are solutions to this. LLC is not the only solution. So, but this is the easiest thing that you can do on the U.S. side. So that's the reason they go for it. Again, convenience, easiness brings a lot of trouble for Canadians with the LLC. So find somebody who can help you. Find somebody who knows cross-border taxation, who knows Canadian tax, who knows U.S. tax, and then who are familiar with the issues, tax treaties, and E2 visa specifics. I work with a lot of immigration lawyers, so I know a lot of the E2 visas, how it was done, what is required. So, but this is not everybody. This is not everybody. Again, when you have first and two combined, what it does, look how it complicates, right? If you're still a Canadian resident, now you have a US LLC. We have a possible double taxation scenario. And then on top of that, you become a US resident. Let's say, for example, now you have, things are still lingering on the Canadian side. You have retirement accounts, you have TFSA, you have RESP, you have, non-registered accounts, you have Canadian mutual funds, and then now you're becoming a US resident. That creates a whole lot of mess. That means more reporting, more taxation, more fees to get your returns done. And that's a complicated scenario. How long can you maintain this? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? You cannot keep on maintaining this for years and years, right? So, this is free money going out of your pocket. And that goes with the US residency, right? So, because of, the first one, with people with limited cross-border knowledge, they set you up with things that without the help of a point number two, a cross-border tax professional, that leads to complicated situations on the Canadian and the U.S. side. And then the penalties on the US side for non-compliance or missing reporting is huge. US foreign reporting is huge. I cannot stress enough, how complicated it can become, how quickly it can become complicated. And then and the fees, the late filing fees, the missing fees, they're not into 1, 2, 3,000, 10,000 and above, right? So we got to make sure that we are working with a professional who knows both sides. And that's the reason I wanted to do this with you, because I come across a lot of Canadians on E2 visas with LLCs. They're running into these problems where their situation is becoming complex by the day. They need multiple people on each side of the border to help them. Majority of Canadian CPAs cannot even help you, and they will tell you find somebody with a cross-border experience. So my point will be that simplify your situation, right? Make sure that you work with a lawyer, with a cross-border professional when you're doing this. You're putting a lot of money into the E2 visa. That is not cheap. A couple thousand more can really make things simple for you, right? So these are some of the key considerations when it comes to Canadians with E2 visa, and then with the US LLCs. All right. So I'll talk about, I briefly talk about how there's a mismatch, what happens when you have a US LLC and you are still a Canadian resident, how this affects your Canadian reporting, how this affects your US reporting. So on again, the majority of the double taxation comes from where the US taxes you only on the profit earned. This is the key issues, cross-border key issues. The majority of taxes on the US side is on the profit earned, not on the distribution. Again, profit earned. So this is just on paper. If your company made 100,000, you'll pay tax on the 100,000. We're not talking about dividends or distributions yet. You haven't distributed that money. You haven't, there's nothing else there. So what happens is, let's say, for example, out of that 100,000, I'm just gonna quickly do some math. So let's say, for example, US LLC earn 100,000, right? So this is where the US will tax you. Now, out of that 100,000, you take out 25,000. In the US, this 25,000 is already taxed through the 100,000. So there's no tax on this distribution. I'm going to write down distribution here. But on the Canadian side, this gets taxed again. So the taxes that you have paid on this 100,000, which could be, let's say, for example, 21,000, you won't get any credit on the Canadian side, or the credit will be limited. You know why? Because what they will be saying this, we don't care what is happening here, because this is a corporation. This is a corporate tax. Did you pay tax on the dividend on the US side? And then, of course, you will say no, and they will disallow you the foreign tax credit, the taxes that you pay to United States. And then what's going to happen is they will tax you on this 25,000. So, for example, on the Canadian side, I'm just going to do simple math: 10%, 2.5, and then 21. Right? So that leaves you 23.5. This is where your additional tax is. Again, double taxation, because you already paid tax on this, right? So these are small things, but bigger impact. Bigger impact on your taxes, bigger impact on your reporting, bigger impact on overall situation. We don't want this, right? We don't want this. We want things to be simple. We want things to be manageable. We want things to be where this can be easily sorted out, right? We want you to pay less taxes, and this is the goal here. We're moving to United States to grow your business, to pay less taxes, to earn more money. By having this situation, you're going the opposite way. So we don't want this, right? So let's clear this all. So these are a couple of things. Of course, on the Canadian side, we do have certain options. If, for example, if you're still trying to be a Canadian resident, we have tax treaty election that you can make that really gives you some option, but this is a time-taking process. It involves quite a bit of reporting, forms, money, professionals. Not everybody can do this. There only it's only few out there, and cost a lot of money. So we have again, you're coming to United States for a reason, and then so we want that reason to be the main reason, right? Is to grow, to save taxes, to make more money, to have things simple, and then to keep things easy. That's the here. So how do we help? I want to make sure that you guys understand, how we are able to help you. So what the way we work is, we work with Canadians to bridge the information gap. And then what do I mean by that? Is that when you're coming to the United States, you don't know anything about the tax system here, right? You have no clue. Only thing that you know from sitting in Canada is, hey, I have an LLC or corporation. I'm coming here. I'm going to set up this company, and then I'm going to start working. No idea how U.S. tax system works, which is very different from the Canadian tax system. Canadian tax system is much smaller, much simpler. The instructions are much easier to read. US is the opposite. More complex, more options, and the instructions are harder to read. So the way we help is that we bridge the gap. We bridge the information gap. We help you understand. We help you understand. How the U.S. system works compared to the Canadian side, and then how the retirement works, how the payroll works, how the structure works, and then you make the best decision for yourself. All right. So this is what we are able to do. We are able to bridge the information gap, save you time, right? This is save you time, reduce stress, again, save taxes, avoid unnecessary reporting for multiple years. Through our services, what you can do is you can, of course, save time, reduce tax, save on taxes, and avoid unnecessary reporting for multiple years. This is, you guys have no idea how many Canadians are, once they move to the United States, how many years they still file on the Canadian side and misreporting. They have no clue what is going on. They keep on filing. They don't know how to get out of the Canadian system. And then that creates a lot of problem. In some cases, they don't even know what foreign reporting requirements are. And then so now we're looking at penalties, missing form penalties, late filing penalties. So with us, we're able to help you. When you're talking to us, we assess your current talk. This is what you do. We do an assessment of where you are, how things are on the Canadian side, how things are on the US side, what, review your current situation, assist you understanding, help you understand, hey, this is how things work in the US, this is how things work on the Canadian side, this is the equivalent, this is, this is the way you should be looking at this, this is the way the Canadian looks at this is the way the US looks at it, and help you step by step, right? There are layers to each information. Not everything has to be learned right away. So, over time, simplify your positions, simplify your tax filing, simplify your compliances. So what we do is we help you understand both US and Canadian tax systems. We discuss roadmaps, what means that we build goals, we set up some due dates, we say, hey, this is what we're going to do in this year and next year, and then execute those plans, right? So this is what we're able to. We can help you with the corporate tax filings, tax return in US and Canada, personal tax filing in US and Canada. We can also help you. We can also help you with bookkeeping, with accounting, with payroll services in the US. And then again, quarterly tax planning too. That's the key here. So anybody who comes here, when you're moving here new, these are all the things that you do require. These are all the things that you require. And this is where we can help you. And then we can save you so much time, so much hassle, so much in penalties. By being upfront, by holding your hand right away and making sure that you are able to get the results that you want to get when you want to come here. It's not easy to move from Canada to the United States. This is a big move, even though we are neighbors. This is a big move, and majority of people are looking to make their lives better in economic terms, in financial terms. So why not learn, but learn from a professional that can guide you, help you understand how the system works, so you can make better decisions. You can make decisions that will help you financially, for your business, for you personally, and then go from there, right? So this is how we bridge the information gap for Canadians with on E2 visa with the LLC, or they're converting. So this is these are some things that we do. I'm going to now go into what are the key requirements to convert. This is something that I get asked a lot by Canadians. Of course, you must be a tax resident, so that means you must you must meet the substantial present test of 183 days or more. If you're not a tax resident of United States, you cannot get an S-Corp election. So Canadians who are looking to move, have LLCs and want to convert before moving, that cannot happen. You must be a tax resident. So a non-resident of a U.S. who doesn't live here, who doesn't have meet the substantial present test, cannot become your LLC cannot be converted to S-Corp. That's the key, one of the key ones. Of course, we have other ones which are general, only one class of stock. Shareholders are limited to 100 shareholders. You cannot have more than that. The LLC must have been formed in the United States. So, of course, it must be a U.S. LLC. It cannot be a foreign LLC. And then Form 8832 is required to be, I'm sorry, Form 2553 is required. 2553 is required to be filed with the IRS. All right. So if one note is also that if you do move back to Canada, let's say, for example, you were here for 3 years, now you move back and you become a non-resident alien, your S-Corp election terminates. And then when it terminates, you become a C-Corp. You're not an S-Corp anymore. You don't become a LLC 100% disregarded anymore. You become a C-Corp. So technically, S-Corp election is LLC, which is disregarded. It becomes a corporation. Within the corporation is a S election. So you're bypassing the corporate by having just a S-Corp election. So it gives you both. It gives you the election, and then it gives you the corporation. So when the election terminates, the corporation remains. All right. Let's move to the next part. So business taxes, again, S-Corp is also a pass-through entity. The S-Corp does not pay any taxes. Form 2553 is filed. I'm going to change the color of the pen. So Form 2553 is filed. Form 1120S is filed with the federal government. There is a requirement for reasonable salary. So that's just something that is key. We normally deal with another company that helps us do the reasonable compensation. So in case of an audit, we are okay. So if you are a owner of a S-Corp, you must have reasonable compensation. That's another key requirements. Payroll taxes, of course, the business will be paying all the payroll taxes. Some states do levy taxes on S corporations too, and then some states don't, depending on what state you're in. So let's say, for example, you're in New York, you're in California, you'll be paying S corp or X corporation taxes. In some states have fees, and some states there are no. So in Texas, there is no S corp state. There's LLC franchise tax in the state of Texas, and then that has a larger threshold. I think for this year was 2.4 million in revenue. Your revenue must be higher than 2.4 million for you to pay any tax in the state of Texas. All right, so let's clear this all. Personal taxes, as I said, for the S corp election, you must be a U.S. resident. That means worldwide income and your assets, foreign assets, must be reportable on the U.S. side. So that means, as a U.S. resident, you are taxed on your worldwide income and reporting on worldwide assets. So this is what I'm talking about, right? So, again, without knowing, a lot of Canadians on E2 with LLCs convert to S corp, and then next thing you know, the reporting box opens up, and everything now needs to be reported on the U.S. side. And then you're still tied to Canada, and then you're reporting everything on the Canadian side. And then with that, you have business reporting. look at how the complex structure you're creating, right? This is getting complex. This is, you're into territory where you don't understand. You cannot read all the instructions. You won't be able to understand this. It's going to be hard. So you need professional help. It doesn't have to be us. It could be anybody who is a cross-border professional that you can trust, that you can say, hey, help me. And then what we do different from others is that, of course, we help you simplify the situation. We help you simplify your tax situation. So again, worldwide and personal, we have W-2, which is same as T4 on the Canadian side, and then we have profits from S-Corp. So the profits, the way it works is that it doesn't have to be distributed. So a lot of Canadians get confused, right? On the Canadian side, we only have few entity structures, and then so a lot of times when money is being distributed from entities on the Canadian side, it's some kind of dividend, and then so there's additional tax. But that's not true on the U.S. side. That's the key here, right, to a very important part, right? So it's much different when it comes to U.S. And this is where you lose focus. You start thinking, hey, what is going on? I need help. All right. So that's the filing. You file 1040. You file Schedule E to report this income. Of course, if you have foreign reportings, 8938 bar. If you have Canadian ETFs, which is PFIX, could be possible. And if you have Canadian corporation, a lot of E2, Canadians have Canadian corporations still lingering around on the Canadian side. That means Form 5472 needs to be there too. It's 5471 in some cases. All these forms, foreign reporting forms are there. So this is some of we just summarize in terms of what forms will be required if you were becoming a LLC, if you were electing to be a S-Corp from LLC as a Canadian E2. Of course, Form 2553 for the election, business entity. This is 1120S form, which is the federal tax return form for the business. K1 is generated from that 1120S, and is transferred to your personal return on 1040 Schedule E. Of course, this is for FBAR requirements, 10,000 on Canadian accounts. When I say Canadian accounts, this is LIRA, RSP, TFSA, RESP, you name it, everything in bank accounts. 8938, we have specific thresholds. These are different for everybody. So if you're single, we have a different threshold. If you're married, there's different threshold. So these are things that needs to be done on the U.S. side. These are just the basic forms, right? We're not talking about the other forms. These are just basics. On the Canadian side, of course, T1, we have T1134. If you still own a foreign corporation, you have to report T1134. A lot of people miss this form too on the Canadian side. A lot of Canadian accountants don't actually file this form. That's another thing too. T1135 is a much simpler form. And then if you are planning to stay a Canadian resident with the S-Corp, of course, we have election tree that you can go through. It is a lengthy process. It is a costly process. And if you're planning to be in the U.S. long term, then this might not be the best solution. So, look, again, if you have a complex situation or you're coming here on E2 visa with the US LLC, you haven't moved, you have moved, whatever your situation, and then you want to talk to us about your situation, how to simplify it, email us, info@akeepcpa.com. We will be able to help you. We can gladly help you. And then, again, talk to us and see if if we are a good fit. And then we can go from there. Again, info@akeepcpa.com, info@akeepcpa.com. And then we'll talk soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.